Solving the disappearing problem of an intermittent no-start, revised version. As a shop owner, here's a situation that you always want to avoid. A good customer of yours calls in and says that their vehicle has been running just fine. They've been using it every day, and they went out to start it and it wouldn't start. The lights in the radio come on, but it just won't start. Now they said that since you have always fixed their vehicles, they're going to have it towed to your shop. When it gets there, it starts just fine. Even after several attempts, it starts just fine. Everything checks out. Now you're frustrated because you don't want to have to call them and say, there's nothing wrong with the vehicle, or worse yet, that you can't find the problem. You know that it would not start for them. It was towed in, and now it starts every time. Nothing else has changed. What could it be? Here's a way to solve the disappearing problem of an intermittent no start. Use a simple jumper wire. Tap into the fuse for the fuel pump. Using your lab scope now, set it up for current ramping and look for circuit dropouts. Here's one in real time. Now it's supposed to look like this. Nice, evenly spaced humps with no dropouts. And it should have the appearance of a sawtooth pattern. Now here's a bad pattern. Notice that it starts out with even humps, but it does regularly drop out. Since the fuel pump constantly spins, the momentum of that spinning could keep it moving right past these dropouts and never even be noticed. But what if the spinning actually stops right on top of one of those dropouts? Now here's another pattern on a different pump. There are no evenly spaced humps at all, but it does have dropouts. Now if you're working on a Ford, the inertia switch is a great place to tap into the circuit. It can be in different locations, but they're usually behind the kick panel down by the passenger seat. Instead of a jumper wire, simply use your current clamp. Nothing to disconnect, jump, or even back rope. Just clamp around the wire that's already there. Now here's how easy it is to set it up and what it should look like. Of course, there are other reasons for a no start, but here's why this situation may happen. The fuel pump is failing. It hasn't failed completely yet, but it is going to. These pumps are simply motors. They run constantly whenever the vehicle is running, and they can get worn out over time. Inside the fuel pump, the brushes must contact the commutator for current to flow. When you shut it off, the fuel pump stops spinning. If the commutator stops spinning, where one of the contact points are worn to the point of losing contact, the current can't flow when you go to restart it. No contact, no flow. You have an open circuit. The tow truck may have caused enough bouncing movement when it was loaded and driven across town that it caused the pump to reestablish contact so the current could flow. Even the slightest loss of contact can break current flow. The problem could even just be a weak spring or a worn spring on one of the brushes. Of course, this indicates an issue with the fuel pump. It's beginning to fail and it should be replaced to avoid a comeback. Now, for all of you critical thinkers out there, think about this. Isn't a starter simply a motor with brushes and a commutator inside it? So, couldn't you do this same test for a no crank on a starter as well as doing a no start on a fuel pump? Sure, the starter draws more amps than a fuel pump, so you would need to adjust your lab scope settings for it, but wouldn't it work?